people who do well in this space face the challenge of, well, where do I go next? Because it's not that I have a shortage of opportunities. It's, in fact, that I just have too many different types of opportunities you want to pursue, which is a great problem to have. So I think it starts with people recognizing, okay, I feel stuck. I acknowledge this feeling that there's something else that maybe I'm called to do. And it's not just professionally, maybe there's just some sense that I should be more grateful for where I am. I should be happier with what I'm doing, but I'm just feeling stuck. Burnout is certainly a big part of that. But once you've recognized that feeling, you need to work through a process to get yourself unblocked and moving forward.
Spotlight, brought to you by CSM Focus, where we refine customer success, uniting GTM teams across North America. Welcome to Spotlight, powered by CSM Focus. I'm your host, Emma Lowe. Today I'm with Greg Voigt, and I'm so happy that he's coming back here for the second episode. Now, just before we start, have you ever feel like your career is happening to you instead of because of you? If you're wondering in that path, this episode is for you. Greg has a very successful career in customer success, leading teams, driving revenue, shaping the high-impact customer experience. Greg, do you want to tell us what you're working on right now?
Sure. Emma, thank you so much for having me back and for the first conversation we had and all the conversations you're having with people on this podcast. But what we're up to is a mission to help 1 million people live and work with intention. It's a definite sidestep out of the software as a service space. We absolutely intend to find ways to use technology to advance our mission, but we are doing that by offering programs for individuals and teams. And they're all aimed at helping people be more intentional about the way they live, and specifically for this audience, just intentional about how they work. And the name of our company is Vienna Waits.
What's the moment that made you realize it's time to build this?
I think that if you're cool with it, I might just tell a bit of a story. It offers some context. The reality is that we all, and I think this is especially true for people in customer success, it's a privileged position, it's a privileged career. We make good money, we work with interesting customers. Sometimes the work can be challenging, absolutely, but we can work remotely, we have flexibility. There's so many great things about the work that we do. But you can find yourself in a place where you go, well, is this really it? And you look at the way that you're living your life and the amount of time that you're investing in your work and your career. And it's easy to just hit a metaphorical button and put yourself onto autopilot. And I think that we found ourselves doing that. My wife, both working in software sales and customer success. That was absolutely true for us. During the pandemic, I tragically had my wife diagnosed with and died from brain cancer. And that was a very fast journey. She was diagnosed in February and passed away in June. We had 3 kids together. And all of a sudden I was a single father in the pandemic running. And through that time, I had to do an inventory of what was important in my life. Where was I going to spend my time? How was I going to get the things done that I needed to do? To layer on top of that, the company I was with, Exonify, which is a wonderful company. So many of our customers were retailers that in the pandemic, in a customer success role, our job was so critical to make sure the business just stayed alive. The work was very intense on top of the tragedy of my personal circumstance. And later on and through 2020 and into 2021, my wife now, Whitney, and I, we knew each other, had a friendship before, and that translated into a romantic relationship, which is very complicated, as you can imagine, through that time. It took the two of us sitting down and navigating day by day what's important, what's critical, what's essential. And we were intentional about each and every decision we made to move our life forward. Whether that was what we did for work, what the kids did, who we spoke to. And in spite of the chaos of the time, we did and achieved incredible things together. And it was, upon reflection, this fearless and truly happy time in our lives. Fast forward 3 years later, we got married. I have a stepson now, her son. Part of our, like, we're all a family. We're this beautiful blended family, but we're back to working in software sales, mortgage to pay, and we're back on that autopilot. And we're like, what happened to that intentional life that we had? And we thought, there's got to be a better way to spend 40 hours a week, 40 years of our life. And why wait for it to be a disaster or a crisis? Why can't we take some of what we learned and some of what we did just to survive those years and translate that into our life and our life's work and help other people find the joy that can come from living and working intentionally without a tragedy or a crisis? And that really was the foundation of us thinking through and working through what got us through that period and led us to create what is now called Vienna Waits.
Greg, thank you for sharing. That's a really touching story. And I just want to say I'm sorry that you went through that, but also we're grateful that you're sharing this with us today. You mentioned it's intentional.
Yeah.
This is kind of the theme. And something you mentioned before is like going through your inventory, what we have today.
Yeah.
I don't want to show you my kitchen drawer, but that's how I felt. Like you mentioned CS, we feel like we're on a treadmill in
Yeah.
the SaaS industry. We always going through that triple number or double number or reduced churn or renewals, all these things, but without really stopping and thinking what's happening, how we take control of our lives right now. Are we doing something impactful? Always asking this question. Yeah.
I think it's a hard question to answer because if you look at your calendar, Emma, and anyone listening in the CS space, there's no shortage of meetings, no shortage of clients to jump on a call with or fires to fight. That's just the reality of the SaaS industry, but customer success in particular as a profession, because our job is to prevent bad things from happening. And the job is never done in customer success. You can become very good at what you do and consistent in how you approach your work and get good at it. And there's real value in that. But the danger of it, of course, is then you find yourself 20 years into that career and you go, well, there's something else that I really cared about that maybe I should pursue either as a full scale career pivot or just as a hobby and create space for in my life because it goes by so quickly.
A couple years come by, you're just doing the same work. And often the question is, how do I get into CS? But what happens after that? From your current program, how
Yeah.
do you guide people through, how do you get people like find that core value or impact you're looking for, no matter what stage?
Bringing professionals together who are in the CS space, that conversation will be a rich one because getting into customer success opens so many doors. I can imagine this is true for you, Emma. Now you are a voice and a thought leader in this profession, and you've opened up so many doors for yourself. People who do well in this space face the challenge of, well, where do I go next? Because it's not that I have a shortage of opportunities. It's in fact that I just have too many different types of opportunities you want to pursue, which is a great problem to have. So I think it starts with people recognizing, okay, I feel stuck. I acknowledge this feeling that there's something else that maybe I'm called to do. And it's not just professionally, maybe there's just some sense that I should be more grateful for where I am. I should be happier with what I'm doing, but I'm just feeling stuck. Burnout is certainly a big part of that. But once you've recognized that feeling, you need to work through a process to get yourself unblocked and moving forward. There isn't really a toolkit for this for people outside of the professional world. We've got lots of tools to move ourselves forward in our work, but we don't think to apply those tools to our personal lives. The broad frame that we use is first pause, which is to do an inventory of what are the things that are important to me? Why do I feel stuck? And why do I feel like I want to make change now? That can be a powerful question for people to ask themselves. We take them through some exercises to do an assessment of their own resilience and do an assessment of why am I here and why am I here now? Second, we prioritize. You've got different aspects of your life that you could change. And that could be your work and career, but maybe it's your personal health and wellness. Maybe it's a relationship or a set of relationships that you have where I'm feeling weighed down. And maybe it's just the systems in life. As parents, you and I can relate to this, that it can feel chaotic at times. And if you don't have good systems in place, then that can hold you back. So just doing that prioritization of where should I put my energy? What is the thing that's making me feel blocked? Because sometimes it could seem like work is my problem, but maybe it's a relationship that needs some repair or attention with a partner, with a sibling, with a best friend. And the third part is to pursue. When we say pursue, we say, okay, we know why we're here. We know what we want to fix, but now what do I do?
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever
Okay.
done a quarterly business review?
No, this is such
And,
a
and maybe that's for the best. And maybe we absolutely don't call it that because anybody in SaaS or in CS would shudder at the notion of doing another QBR. But you take the principles of what a QBR is about. Let's imagine 3 months from now. Where am I going to be? Define it as if it's already been done. Write it down. To pursue that goal, I need a plan. Use a tactical approach to map out what I want to do and then step it back, step by step. 3 months from now to today, build the milestones that we're going to use to check in and measure progress along the way. Yes, we can achieve amazing things, not just at work, but in our personal lives. Become unblocked, start to move forward. And if you do it one time, you can certainly do it again.
the closest thing to a business review for anybody out here is that January reflection.
I think it's amazing when people get excited and put forward these amazing plans that they have for their lives, but those things often fall apart so quickly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think is there like a time in so interesting. This episodes we are filming in February. So interested to know how many people are keeping up their gym plan. Yeah,
No,
that's
we look.
Yeah.
Data suggests that 76% of people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions.
Probably.
The data by the end of the year, 9% will make it. I think a huge part of that is the programming we offer. What Vienna Waits is focused on, just like in a quarterly business review with clients, whether it's your CSM or your executive champion, you've got accountability there. Where's the accountability in our personal lives? It's really hard to find. So we launch our programming with groups of people, and that group becomes your change group that you're moving through that change process with. And so when you show up at each milestone at the end of month 1, the end of month 2, and then celebrate your success at the end of month 3, you got a group of people there to lean on, who are cheering you on, who are advocates for helping you to make that change come true. Which,
Definitely accountability group.
yeah,
That's double down on that. It's so interesting you mentioned so many parallels of CS industry, QBRs, change management, all these things we talk all the time in CS. But one thing I think we didn't talk about is like advocacy, right?
yeah,
How do we advocate our first selves?
I actually think,
We-
yeah, that's it. It's true. Advocacy is the thing you're ultimately striving for with a customer, right? It is advocacy. So you advocate outwards, but advocating for yourself can be a challenge. I'm curious for you, Emma. You say that advocacy is such an important part of CS, but when you think about making change in your own life, you have to advocate for yourself. How do you reflect on how intentional you are, and in what ways do you advocate for yourself? Whether it's at work for that promotion or with your network to say, hey, I'm looking for a new challenge, take on a new volunteer opportunity or try something new. Is that something you find that you're good at or struggle with?
I found myself really good at inviting you to talk about what your mission is about. But when people ask me, hey, Emma, what do you want to do next 5 years? I found myself struggling with that because sometimes feel like autopilot Just
Yeah.
you're expected to do. Your next step is, VP of CS or CCO, whatever that is, and just sometimes pause and is this the right path that I want to go for? But on the advocacy part, when opportunity comes, I found myself not always the one put my hand up or something, have a hesitate in
Really?
myself.
That surprises me. Just how you show up, not just in this podcast, but I think socially in person when we've met on social media and whether that's LinkedIn or other platforms, you seem and appear to be comfortable in that role. But you struggle with that?
This is interesting because I talk to other people who has much bigger following. Everybody still struggle for that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It's yet I
So
think every
I think that is. And maybe what is it not for others? Because again, you're doing it and you're advocating
I
for
know.
others.
We kind of talk about how my upbringing. I'm from a Asian family where you are expected to do on this expected life. Only like doctors, engineer, lawyers are considered good career path to go to.
Okay.
So when you're off the path, you kind of lost becoming the what do you mean you're going into business, right? Something like that.
Or fix that
Yeah.
differently. Right.
Yeah. It's harder to be. And so I think maybe it's just me finding who am I as Emma if I'm not going on the doctor or scientist or curing cancer path.
Yeah.
But I would say the 2 years that we know each other, I felt like you are always been a great mentor to other people and to me.
Well, very kind of you to say.
Yeah.
I think that's important. It's something that I've had to come to terms with. We all have our barriers and challenges, but they look so different to each person and each individual. And some are more instrumental than others. And I think that I've, over the course of my life, struggled to acknowledge the privilege that I've had just by the nature of the fact that I was born in Canada. I'm a white male. I I come from a middle class family. I could go to university, and I always felt like I worked so hard, but the advantages I've had aren't the same as what other people face. And it helped me to be grateful for that privilege and to acknowledge it. And I think help others to acknowledge the barriers that they face and still bring a sense of hope, optimism, and better empathy for helping people to navigate challenges. There's a lot more complexity there. And I think you are doing an incredible job, even just acknowledging it in this conversation. But with how you show up for others and help them tell their stories says a lot about who you are too, which is, I think you've got a lot of gifts that you bring to the world.
Oh, thank you.
Well, this is just certainly,
We're gonna
but I truly believe that. And for anyone who listens and says, well, easy for you to say, I think there's work to do to acknowledge the barriers and to know that there's work to be done collaborating with and partnering with others to figure out ways to get through them the best that they can. Because we just get one life and one chance, and things can change really fast. So we owe it to ourselves to do our best.
what would you defining your why?
Yeah.
This is so hard when you have drawers.
Yeah.
How do you define that
So,
where they are?
so one of the things that we're careful about in the context of what we're doing at Vienna Waits is that is such a big question. Like, why do anything? The metaphysical why question can start to feel really difficult to answer. And it can lead to a lot of rabbit holes and potentially trauma and pain for people. And so the way I would address that question of why is, why do you feel like change is necessary? If we put that into context of why do you feel stuck? Why do I want to change? That becomes a little bit easier to answer because it's not just why do I want to live in Canada? Why do I want to live in Kingston? Why do I feel like I want to change now? And the way that we address that exercise is we start with very simply, because I'm very visual. I love images. They start with drawing a picture of a graph. What is the trajectory that you think you're on right now? You've identified an area that you want to change. Would you draw a line that says, I'm kind of going down right now? Or do you say that I'm flat right now? Or do you say that I'm going up right now? Because when somebody says, I want to make a change, it's like, well, okay, let's start with how are we trending? Or do you want to change because there's a crisis and things are getting worse? Or do you want to change something because I'm just doing things and it's not getting worse, but it's not getting better? Or do you want to change because I want to get better faster? And then we can say, okay, that is a bit of a crisis mode and a bit of a crisis state. And so we can work more urgently. And it changes the way we think about an action plan. It changes the way we think about what to do next. But for the most part, and I think most of the people listening to this, and maybe even you, Emma, it's more just this sort of flat line. For a lot of people, things are fine. They're just not getting better. They're not getting worse. It's just fine. And when it's that state, then we start to go into an exercise of, okay, so we've got what's our state, but let's really drill into why does the line feel flat? Like, well, why do I not feel like I'm growing? And we just do that why 3 or 4 times, and it gets us to a level of defining the state that I'm at and how do I move forward or move out of that trend. There's a lot of answers that can come just from exploring the trajectory that I'm coming into that conversation.
This is such a great exercise.
The way correct.
Yeah. And then really come down to that why. Yeah. Kind of.
But
Yeah.
But an important part too, when we think about why there's something that I want to change, and that prioritize steps, pause, prioritize, and pursue. In the prioritize phase, we are really helping people by saying, if you feel like something needs to change in your life, we try to put some context around, well, what are the things that you might want to change in what area? And we just boil it down to 4 generally. And most things are going to fall into one of these 4 buckets. We could debate it endlessly. Is it 5? Should it be 7? 5. So we landed on 4, and that's work and career, something needs to change. Relationships, something needs to change. Health and wellness, something needs to change. Or planning and organization, so the systems of my life. In one of those 4 areas, something needs to change. And once you put context around that, in those other 3 areas, I feel fine. But in this one, it's like, it's almost you diagnose the problem. Once you diagnose the problem, then you know what to do. It becomes more clear. But when you're in that state of just feeling maybe overwhelmed or discouraged or flatlined, everything just feels kind of flat. But if you draw it out, which of these areas am I actually feeling stuck? It might just be one. And it's, well, that's the one to work on. And let's just go after fixing one thing in one area. By unblocking one area, it might kick over others.
That's a really good exercise.
Our passion for what we're doing, and this is my wife and I doing this together, I think it's just the mission to help 1 million people live more intentionally. It was born out of that story that I shared, but really it's just about the fact that so many of the people around us, wonderful, driven, smart people, just seemed in ways like us on that autopilot. Hey, how's your week? Fine. Let's talk about something else. It just felt like, what is that? We all have so many skills and we're so interesting, but we leave so much of that behind because it's hard to change. And so if it's 1 million people, then perhaps whether it's in our community or in Canada or in North America, at least there's 1 million people being more intentional. So then it becomes, instead of the exception, it becomes the rule. At least there's some place in the world where our kids can go and find inspiring, motivating, interesting people. And yeah, we want to just be a part of helping to build that sort of movement.
We need to start a hashtag.
Let's do it. Intentional living. And I think, I truly think we're not interested in helping people blow up their lives. I think work and career serves us in such a big way. And many people that we've interacted with are in the programming and they just want to change their perspective about their work. Or they want to fix a relationship. But some people are saying, no, I'm ready to make a change. I want to advance. I want to become a leader. But now I've got a group of people rallying around me saying, you can do it. I've been in CS for 7 years. I know my customer. I'm really passionate about the environment. I want to take my CS skills and maybe go to an organization or a company in the nonprofit sector. Or I want to go and volunteer and sit on a board at an organization that needs to think more about how to retain grants in this really complex funding environment. the CS world and community, which is where I come from, has such an opportunity to do so many different things that I think it's natural to hit a crossroads and say, what do I do? Like, I'm overwhelmed by options. And so it just feels easier to stay. The vacations are good and the family, but it doesn't need to be the default.
I really like what you said about enrich your life.
Yeah, that sounds like amazing. And if you want to move to the Bahamas, but
Costa Rica.
absolutely.
Mm.
But yeah, it's not about. Yeah, there's books that I've read, right, where it's like Stephen Pressfield's one of my favorite authors, and he's got this book, "Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be." Like, damn it. So if I ever want to be an author, I have to move to Austin, or if I want to be a journalist, I have to move to New York. It's like, I've got a family. These are things that I can't do, and you feel so convicted when you read these things. No, it's not about blowing up your life, but I think incrementally making change is possible, but it's really hard. And it's hard because autopilot's easier. There's lots of friction to change, and there's not a set of tools.
It's cozy.
It's cozy and easy, and nobody should feel convicted. If they're happy and satisfied, then you're probably living intentionally already, and that's great. If something in this conversation you're like, damn it, I want a piece of that. It's like, maybe you do, and maybe there is an appetite for change. We felt that way. Our calling was to do this, and we just want to help others find that fire, that sense of passion, and that's what we're up to.
Yeah. I hope any listener out there, this episode is not we're just here to help make a little more clarity. We're going to start and just take more control of what you want for your future, even in this chaotic world.
Well said, Emma.
Yeah.
I love that, and love everything that you're doing to build community, bring community together, because I think community itself gives people so much purpose, meaning, and value.
What's the best way for folks to find you?
Yeah.
Like,
So please, if anyone's intrigued, interested, wants to learn more, one way that we're reaching people is every 2 weeks. We're publishing the Vienna Fives, or our newsletter. And so you can sign up for that if you go to www.vienna-waits.com. Then you can just sign up for that and just follow us on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And we're producing content. And then if you're really interested, we have a program called Unblock Yourself, which is designed to do those 3 steps: to pause, prioritize, and pursue. And there's been some incredible people in the CS world in the program already, taking it and doing amazing things and growing. And I'll never say that again past this podcast, because nobody in the CS world wants to do another QBR.
no.
But if you're interested, then do that.
Oh.
Yeah, check us out at vienna-waits.com.
Thank you so much, Greg, for your time.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you.